Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Homeschool Live. I'm your host, Christine, and joining me today is Terrie Hellard-Brown. And I'm excited to get to know more about you, and because you do so much. And I'll let you tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself. But Terrie is a writer, a speaker, podcaster, and is just so encouraging to families out there. So why don't you say hi and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello. I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad to get to share with your families that homeschool. I am in awe of families that take that on and homeschool their kids. I was a classroom teacher for over 20 years, and I homeschooled for a short time, and it is a commitment. And it takes a real calling, I think. And I believe God is calling many of us to that today. So I try to encourage parents as much as I can.
Awesome. Well, I see that you have the best of both worlds, so to speak, in terms of teaching. And same with me. I was in the public school sector as well for about 8 years, and then I decided I wanted to homeschool my kids. So as soon as my firstborn was here, and I quit, and that was it for me. So I've been homeschooling ever since. And so I'm sure you've picked up quite a bit of what are some of the things that we have to deal with for challenges and all of that. So what do you see as one of the biggest challenges for homeschooling families?
I think today, two things that come to my mind. The first one, of course, is how we navigate our culture. And we don't want to, put our head in the sand, overprotect our kids to where they're not equipped to be adults in society. And it's tempting. It's tempting to shelter them and shield them from everything, but we know we can't. We want to equip them instead, and knowing when the right time is for that. And I have 4 children, and I found with each one, I had to navigate how they were. One of my daughters is super sensitive. And so even today, she's an adult now, I still can't just give her the daily news of all the stuff in the world, or she gets overwhelmed.
Yeah.
My other daughter was a social butterfly, out doing everything. She has no fear, total daredevil. I needed to equip her to be prepared, and she actually was almost kidnapped on the mission field. Yeah, so we were missionaries overseas, and so she was out there, and I needed to prepare her to be smart and to know that there are dangers in the world. And so I had to approach teaching her a little differently than I did my other daughter. And so we have to look at our kids and their developmental age, where they are, what they're equipped for, but to prepare them. And I think, like most homeschoolers, I was criticized by family members saying we were trying to overly protect our children and they weren't going to understand the world. And I find the exact opposite to be true. They have been very well equipped as adults to step out, face the world, and understand that there's evil in the world, but we have a Savior that's stronger than the world. And they hold on to their faith, and they hold on to God. And I thank Him so much for that, and for the opportunity we had as missionaries to homeschool them.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's my prayer too, that they're going to be grounded and equipped is the word that you used. Equipped is such a good word. Mine are only 12 and 8 right now. And so we're, still trying to navigate life and figuring out who they are now, and personalities are forming and all of that stuff. And it's challenging, as you said, because you have to customize, each pathway that you take with each child. And we surely do need God's wisdom and God's guidance.
That's just what I was going to say. I think that scripture that says, if you lack wisdom, pray for it. I claim it every day.
Oh, I love James. Oh my goodness. That is my book. But it's so key that, we ourselves as parents need to be grounded first, because otherwise we'll be a complete mess. So I find myself, when I'm having those off days, it's okay. Let me recenter myself, refocus, and get grounded myself, because then I can be that strong support for my kids. So all of this is good, but if you had one piece of advice for parents, what would since you've learned all of this, what would you say?
Well, first and foremost is what we just said. Claim that scripture from James. Ask God for his wisdom, because we think we know our kids, but as they get older, and
surprise,
and like I was saying, my one daughter, who's the daredevil, I call her, there's things that she'll do, and then 2 years later she'll finally tell me she did it because she knows it would worry me. And so I never knew what she was going to be up to. It was usually risking her life hanging off a cliff somewhere.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, for her 25th birthday, she jumped out of an airplane twice. This is who she is. She was a missionary teacher in Myanmar right before the coup, when COVID hit, got out just before everything went crazy, and she's ready to go back. I mean, she's just that kind of a kid. And so we don't know what all our kids are going through. So if we don't have God's wisdom and his insight, we're, like trying to find our way blindly down a path. So that's number one, always. I always encourage parents to pray for God to renew our minds from Romans 12, 1 and 2, because like you said, if we aren't on the right path, how do we lead our kids? We can't take them where we aren't going. And so that's number one. And then the biggest thing I learned from being a classroom teacher and going into homeschooling was I was too structured. And so I encourage homeschool parents not to do what I did. Don't make the mistakes I made. I was very structured, and it did not go well. And on top of that, 3 of my 4 are on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And so we had those challenges, and 2 of them were misdiagnosed for quite a number of years as ADHD. Wow. Well, as a classroom teacher, I knew we set the timer, we put the clock on, keep them on task. Well, with autism, they do just the opposite, because that stresses them out. So those kinds of situations, the challenges of meeting each child's need, we have to think about those things and not be too structured. Enjoy the time we have as we walk through this, because it is going to be hard. It is a challenge. There's going to be days you just want to, scream a little because it's just the family dynamic. And I mean, even as a classroom teacher, we had those days, right?
Of course. But you feel it more because it is family, and you get under each other's skin a lot more.
And we can't help ourselves as parents. We still have that desire to see perfect children in our children. And I think we push too hard sometimes if we're not careful. And we also don't want to be so loosey-goosey that we're not meeting, the challenges and all of that as well. But for me, I tended to be the opposite. I was perfectionistic, structured, push. And that's not healthy. And I backed off pretty quickly, but it took me longer than I would like to admit to realize that wasn't the way to go. The other thing I learned is it was my job. And I didn't recognize that at first. I was still doing some tutoring on the side. We were overseas, so we were missionaries doing ministry. I was leading the choir and doing all these extra things. And so my kids lost out because they weren't my priority.
Right.
They were my priority, but I wasn't keeping it there. I was too busy, distracted. And I said, if I had to do it over again from day one, I would say, this is my job. This is my full-time job. And I can't be bothered during these hours. I can't tutor. I can't do this. And in the evenings, I've got to grade and do other stuff, preparing for the next day. It should have been my full-time job. And so those were the 2 things that I noticed, not being overly structured, and then recognizing it's a commitment, and other things have to take a back seat. So that would be my biggest advice. And then when you're dealing with special needs, and so many of us are, to really educate ourselves, to know how best to help our kids to succeed we have such a gift as homeschoolers. You know, as a classroom teacher, I wanted to sit with each child and teach them what they needed to know and help them. I used to teach 11th and 12th grade literature and AP psychology. And I said, my one desire was just to sit with each kid and help them with their essay writing, because this one needed grammar help. This one needed structure help, you know, arguments stronger. With our kids in homeschool, that's exactly what we can do. We can individualize. It's like each one can have an IEP and we can totally meet their needs. And that is such a blessing that we just don't get in the classroom, the regular school classroom. So those are the things I always think of with homeschooling. What a blessing that is. So.
It is. And those are some really wonderful points. I know for myself, I'm sort of in that spot where I need to make sure that my priorities are straight, because it's so hard, because you have to support your family. So the job is important, but so is the reason for staying home and teaching your kids at home. And ever since before they were born, I knew that this was the path that I needed to take. And so it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to okay, well, I'll kind of push them off to the side for a little bit because I got this project to work on. I got this, but you see it, you notice it, like you'll start to see that it's not working. The struggles will happen, and what's happening here? So okay, let's refocus. And so I'm sort of there right now, where I need to just refocus and just say, okay, no, let's do this, and actually talk to my kids about it. And okay, I'm here with you. Let's do this together. You're not on your own. Just like I'm not on my own here trying to teach you. You got to work with me, and I'm going to work with you, and we're going to get through this. So, I worked in a special needs high school as well, and dealing with that, it broke my heart because each one had their own learning differences, and there was not enough staff to help them properly, and they just kind of coasted through year after year. And you just watch, and then you send them out into the world, and you just, but with my kids, and I can recognize certain learning differences in my kids too, but I could do something about it. And I've been doing my research as little things pop up. They need help with this area, or reading, or did they read differently, or they calculate differently with the math. I got to figure this out. So off I go to research and ask people. And then I come back and I can tailor. And then they're not frustrated, and they're a little bit more confident because they know mom can find answers. Right. Yeah. And so, which is good. And so parents out there, don't be discouraged if you're facing learning challenges, whatever they are. You can find help out there, or call Terrie. I'm sure she can help you with some of these, because it sounds like you've probably dealt with quite a bit of challenges over your years of homeschooling and teaching.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things that I found a special ed teacher who was very generous, and she actually did a workshop with me and another teacher to help us teach writing to students, reading and writing to students who had learning disabilities. At that point, I was teaching a K-1 combo class in a very small school. And one of my students was my own daughter, and she had horrible handwriting. She was in first grade, and autistic kids tend to have very weak fine motor skills. And she taught me how to work with my child in helping her to write better. She taught me she did a combination of the visual, kinesthetic, and auditory. Every lesson had all of them intertwined to where we spoke to the kids' strength, but we were strengthening their weaknesses at the same time. And it was amazing. I had one student who had an auditory disability. He could read and spell beautifully, way beyond his age. But if you told him to write the word cat and you just said it verbally, he couldn't do it. He couldn't process things auditorially. And with this system that she taught me, I was able to help all these kids find success. And I had one who was showing signs of dyslexia. It was just amazing. And this was just a little bitty school. And I had all these students with these issues in that little classroom. And if you find a special ed teacher who is generous with their time and knowledge, they can really help us a lot. So I always encourage picking the brain of your local special ed specialist.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's you can ask the questions. You can, and I've even encouraged parents, just even when I was in the public school, if you've got your kids in the public school, talk to your teachers. Like, you don't have to just sit there and do nothing. As a parent, you have the right to ask those questions and get the resources so that you can continue helping them at home, because they don't just learn at school, or even when you're homeschooling. School time is not just the time when you learn. Like, it goes through everything that you do in life. You're eating, you're playing, you're all of that stuff. There's a learning opportunity, and it's how they process it. Everybody does that differently. So you just have to, like the word that you used, equip yourself and get the knowledge that you need to help your kids. So I love that. So that's a nice launching pad into our next question of, how do you inspire parents through your podcasts and your books? And you got some great ones out there. I think it was 2 podcasts you're on, and you've got a couple of books out there that look amazing. I'm going to be checking it out later.
Well, the center of everything I do, my heart is discipleship. If we're teaching our children anything, discipleship is at the core. And of course, we are discipling our kids, whether we intend to or not, because they're watching us and they're learning from us and they're mimicking us. And so once again, we got to make sure that we're on the right track with our spiritual life. So both of my podcasts are geared toward parents. And the first one is Books That Spark. And we're on our 9th season. We just started our 9th season last week. And with that one, I mostly look at children's books, and we interview authors of children's books, and we talk about how to use them in opening up important conversations. And that may be something spiritual, or it may just be a life skill, but something, because like with my kids on the autism spectrum, you've got to teach them how to interact socially. Well, books are a great way to jump into those conversations too. So, whatever the book presents, it'll show us a way to encourage our kids, teach our kids, and open up those conversations to see where they are and what they're thinking. And so that's the focus of Books That Spark. It sparks those conversations, and we look for those teachable moments with our kids. And so that's the focus of that one. And I have enjoyed doing it much more than I ever thought I would. I started it just kind of as I thought I should do this. I'd been praying about it. And a mom had said, if you could just make a list of books that you've vetted that would be safe for me to read to my kid that don't contradict your Christian worldview, you would save me hours of time. So that started me thinking, and if you join my mailing list, that's the first thing you get, is to download that list of over 100 books. And that got me to thinking, well, we should do a podcast and talk about this. And I'd never done it before. And I jumped in with both feet, because that's just kind of how I do things, and found out I really enjoyed it. So I've been doing that now for quite a few years. And then I started a new podcast last year, and it is focusing on discipleship, and it's Everyday Discipleship Every Day, which is a really long name, but there are other podcasts just called Everyday Discipleship. So mine's long.
Gotcha.
But the focus is that while we're going through life with our kids, with the people in our church, we are discipling along the way, like Deuteronomy 6 says, when we're on the road, when we're at home, when we're putting our children to bed, when we're having a meal. That's when we're discipling, because we're interacting with people and with our children. And so how does that look in the 21st century? When we were missionaries overseas, one of the things I realized is that my little church Sunday school upbringing didn't prepare me to disciple someone who didn't know anything about the Bible, who one of my, the first two girls I discipled, young women actually, when we moved to Taiwan, one was Taoist and had actually been dedicated to one of the goddesses in that religion.
Wow.
Was to live her life in the temple. The other one was what I call a holiday Catholic. She was from Canada and she went to church on Christmas and Easter, and that was it. And so they both had really odd ideas. They both came to Christ in a very real, strong way and started just devouring their Bibles. And so they would come over to my house almost every day after work, and we would just sit and answer. I would answer their questions. We would talk about what they'd read in the scriptures. And I realized this is what discipleship should be. It's not going once a week to a little Bible study. And I mean, sure, that's awesome. But if that's all we're doing, yeah. But if that's all we're doing, we're not really getting down to, are they misunderstanding things? Are we having to unlearn anything? And we were in the middle of this. I did this for a solid year with them. And I'm still in contact with them. But one day, the girl who was raised in the Taoist faith said something about reincarnation. And, I was taught, you teach them how to pray, how to tithe, how to go to church, and I never thought to talk about reincarnation. And she still thought it was real. She just thought it stopped when you became a Christian. That's so I'm like, oh, no. And so we talked about that. We talked about everything, sexuality, everything, because it all comes up as we're, growing.
They're real issues.
And they were both 20-something-year-old women. So, but I just never thought about talking about reincarnation and Buddhist ideas and Taoist ideas in the middle of discipling a Christian. And I think today we have to, even here in the United States, Buddhist thought, New Age, all of those things are in our culture. Our children are exposed to them. Look inside yourself, follow your dreams, all these kinds of things. If you think it, you can do it. If you can, what is it? I don't know the saying, but anyway, it's attributed to like 5 different people, including Gandhi. But and yet that is opposite of what the Bible says. If we look inside ourselves, we are not going to find the right way. We're going to follow our hearts and go the wrong way. And so we've got to help those we disciple, whether they're our own children or someone else.
That's right.
Approach these ideas, undo some of that, and detangle it, I should say, the wrong thinking, and not let that continue on in their faith, or they're going to wind up kind of off. And so that's what we talk a lot about in that podcast. And so it's a little deeper, it's a little more involved, but I've really enjoyed it. And we're starting our 3rd season for that one.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And then with my books, it's the same thing. I just published a book. Can I show it here?
Yeah, sure.
I just happen to have one right here. But this is a handbook that I wrote for parents and they want to disciple their kids. And it's up, down, and all around. Discipleship based on Deuteronomy 6. But it's got 52 devotionals, first of all, for the parents to help encourage us, because we are disciples as well. And then it has 52 object lessons. So it's a very practical, hands-on, active, fun lesson to try to make these concepts very tangible for younger kids. And this book is geared toward discipling I call it picture book age kids, 3 to 10 years old, somewhere, elementary.
Yeah.
And then I have 52 other activities to follow up and continue the conversation and the topic. And I also, of course, have to recommend picture books and board books to read along with it, so you can go through the week continuing that topic and that conversation. And the other fun thing about it is not a book that you start in lesson 1 and go to lesson 52. It's in the back, it has an index. So like you're going to the park today and you want to do your discipleship lesson at the park. So you look in the index and find those lessons that are done outdoors. And they're really quick. Most of them have very little prep. You just take like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get the stuff together that you have around the house. And then you go to the park and do the lesson out in the park. And if you're going in the car on a car trip, I have a couple for that. I have one for a rainy day.
Nice, because you always need one for the rainy day.
Yeah, it involves jumping in puddles, so I hope parents are okay with that. But I tried to make it fun and tangible and accessible for these kids, as well as easy for the parents to put together with very little time. And then there's a couple that take more preparation, and so I let you know that. But I have some for at bedtime, some for at the dinner table or the breakfast table, depending which meal you want to do the lesson on. But I had fun writing it. And some of these are things I did with my kids, and some of these are things I wish I had done with my kids. And so it was just a lot of fun to write. So it's very interactive, and
which is perfect.
Yeah, and like I said, you can do the lessons in any order. So let's say your kids are having a real hard time discerning truth. I actually have a lesson. Each lesson is based on a verb of living the Christian life, because we're doers of the word, right? Not just hearers. So discern is one of the verbs. And so if they're having trouble with truth and knowing what is truth and what isn't, then you could go to that lesson and pull out that topic. So you could go by topic or by place. And so that's it's I'm hoping that it's very practical and very easy to navigate the book, because that was my intention.
It does sound engaging for sure. And I like that, it's not, okay, start from page 1, go to page whatever. Because I feel like, as you were talking and explaining it, I feel like my kids don't like that approach, because they're always like, even today, I think my kid, my older one, he started a new history curriculum, and he started sneaking down the index, and then he saw the hands-on stuff, so then he jumped right to it and started, which is fine. Like, there's no rule that, I mean, he's excited about it.
Yeah.
But like you skipped all the other stuff. Like, it's not designed for that. That particular course was not designed for that. But I think it's fun for them to just, oh, actually, this is really interesting, because I'm really big on interest-led learning too. So if something really sparks with them or with me, I'd rather dive into that too.
Yeah.
So to have that flexibility and not be bound by, okay, we have to wait till week 36 to check off. And then, okay, now we can do it. Because then they lose interest, and then they get frustrated. Oh, this part's boring. And so, not that we skip over boring stuff, because you have to learn everything that is in front of you as much as possible.
But there might be a time that they're quieter and they're more open to that topic, where today they want to go jump in puddles, and so we can go to, so yeah, that's a part of it. And so I think it'll be a lot of fun for parents. I've gotten really good responses from people so far who've bought the book, so I'm excited about it. It's been a book I've been working on for like 3 years.
Oh yeah, it's a process for sure. For sure.
And then my other books are the same way. I have a devotional book for general market picture books. I have 25 devotionals I wrote to go with the different books, like Grumpy Monkey and nice. Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. I actually wrote a devotional for Chicka Chicka Boom Boom.
Wow.
And so that one has been really popular too. And I'm working on the second volume. So that's one thing your listeners could really help me with, is if they have a favorite picture book, tell me what it is, because I'm wanting to put together these devotional books speaking to the books that their kids, to have them read over and over and over again. And so I'm collecting for the next book ideas of which books people would like to see.
Awesome. Well, if you're listening and you've some names have popped into your head, just go into the chat and type away, and put all of your, and if you're watching at a different time, please, we'll come back and check them and get them over to Terrie for sure. So please feel free to leave your comments.
That would be wonderful.
So where is the best place that they can go
Well,
or if they want to reach out to you for more information,
for
where's the best
sure.
place?
Yeah. Everything links from my website, which is terriehellard-brown.com. They can email me from there. They can find both of my podcasts from there. My shop. One of the things I also do is I make jewelry.
Oh,
And so that's all on my shop as well as my books. The jewelry I make is either literature based or scriptural based for the most part. And so there's
Christmas
lots
is
of fun
coming.
stuff. And I take orders if they have a favorite story and I don't have a bracelet or something that's about that story. They can let me know. If I can make the charms or find the charms, we can make the bracelet or whatever. So I've had one Sunday school teacher reach out. She wanted to have, I make bookmarks with charms on the ends, and
Oh,
she wanted the
nice.
same one for her whole Sunday school class. And so I did that to order. So that's something that I do. I said, that's my therapy. That's my relaxing time is
Yeah,
I
creating
do.
something with your hands is
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah. I do book folding and jewelry making, and both of them I just
Wow.
chill out, and that's my fun time. So that's all on my website. Everything's there. And like I said, you can even email me from there. So feel free to do that. I'd love to hear from you.
And you'll find it scrolling across the screen, but we'll also put it in the comments so that you can click right through and check out all this wonderful information from this very talented lady. Thank you so much, Terrie, for joining us today. Is there anything that thought popped into your mind and that you wanted to leave with us today?
I just want to encourage parents. You guys are awesome. And I think homeschooling parents are heroes, and God has called you and gifted you. He doesn't call you to something he doesn't gift you for. You can do this. And I just think it is a gift to our culture and, well, whatever culture we're in, to have young people growing up who love the Lord and
Yeah.
can navigate this world in such a graceful way. And so I just want to encourage you today, and I hope you do feel encouraged.
Well, you've encouraged me. I can say
Good.
that for
I'm
sure.
glad.
And I just wanted to say thank you once again for joining us and sharing with us all that you do and all that you continue to do to inspire parents around, especially us homeschoolers. And thank you for the books and the podcast. I'll be sure to check that out. And yes, all of you who are listening, be sure to hop onto that website and check out her uh, everything, her podcast, her books, and everything that she has to offer. It sounds like so much fun, all of these things. So thank you so much, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again for another Homeschool Live.
Thank you.